Hello. It's Wednesday. I don't know what happened to Monday and Tuesday, to be perfectly honest with you. It's Wednesday. I'm Russ Kane. Welcome to the Midday Show. Got a packed show for you today. Absolutely. Very important subject very close to my heart as well, by the way. But more importantly, you know him. You love him. He's my new compadre. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Scott Lyons.
Afternoon, Russ. How are you?
I think I'm all right. I think I'm okay.
Yes.
No, what the heck? No, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well. I like the big build-up. I think you've got confused with love and tolerance.
What was that? Love
and tolerance. Yes. You know him. You tolerate him.
You know him. You tolerate him.
Yes.
Just about, because out of the kindness of your hearts and out of pity and charity, Scott Lyons. Would that have been?
That's about as good as it gets. That's about the best intro I've ever had. Yeah.
Did you manage to do anything? I don't know if anyone does anything over bank holiday weekends anymore. Some people go to the coast. God knows why you want to sit in traffic for 5 hours. Did you do anything special, or you just think, I'm having a day off? Hooray.
I didn't. I worked. I was on air on bank holiday breakfast, and then my wife, who I dropped off at the airport at stupid o'clock this morning with my daughter. They've gone on a hen party for till Saturday to Benidorm. God help them all.
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, nothing God-fearing people that they are.
So
no,
it's a hen party.
Yes. And
it's in Benidorm.
Yes.
Sounds good to me. Not like a recipe for disaster in the least.
Well, I'm a bit of an aircraft anorak, and I like tracking this flight radar app I've got on my phone.
Oh, I love flight radar.
It's great. So I tracked the flights. She said, I've landed. I said, yes, I know. I've seen you. What? Why? Where are you? Oh, yeah, like I'm standing behind you. No, I've tracked your flights. I know you've landed okay.
Did she expect you to tap her on? I'm sitting behind you the whole time.
Would you like me to carry your bag for you again, love? That's fine. You do what you need to. So she's gone for a few days, which leaves me in the there's me, there's the middle boy, and a house full of dogs. And again, that is another one. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, how old is the middle boy?
The middle boy is, and he's just gone 30.
30.
30, yes.
I thought he was a child.
No. Academically gifted, common sense of a muskrat. This is the kind of level we're working with.
I'm thinking he's like 12 or something.
No,
he's 30.
No, my wife said to me, in this order, make sure you look after the middle boy and then the dogs, because the dogs are self-sufficient. The dogs can fend for themselves, where he's got no chance whatsoever.
Are the dogs out earning a living while the middle boy kind of sits playing Xbox, or how does it work?
Oh, no. He works full-time, but he's reversed. He works from home for 3 days a week and goes to...
Any chance of the middle boy actually leaving home so you can have a life?
Probably not. No, I've got we've got one probably on the way out at some point. So my daughter's in the process of leaving shortly. Hello, hi Robert Van Buren, nice to see you. I hope you've got dogs and kids that just won't leave home. So my daughter's on the way out. My eldest lad left home ages ago and just doesn't want to come back. He'd rather eat his own arms than come back and live with mum and dad.
Shame.
Yeah, I know.
Did you keep him in a cupboard like Harry Potter?
Harry who?
Harry Potter.
Never heard of him. But no. So, and the youngest lad, he's currently on holiday with his now girlfriend and her daughter. So I think at some point we'll be having that conversation about, Dad, now just he passed his driving test last week, bless him. So I am now awaiting a phone call from the garage.
You know what's going to happen. You know it. You can write it.
Yeah. I should have told the phone up like, I should just go like that to the phone, to the screen.
What I would do? Just don't answer the phone. Right. Very, very, very important subject coming up now.
Yes.
Something very close to my heart. Because it took away my dad 24 years ago. So I was pleased to welcome him on the show. So it is, if I could see, wow, that is, you're a million miles away there. Oliver Kemp, CEO of charity Prostate Cancer Research, and hopefully Alfonso.
Yep.
Is that right?
Indeed.
Oh,
nice
good.
to meet you.
Nice to see you both. The camera's like it's in the next state. Blimey,
Come a bit closer.
Jesus. Try it with my eyesight. I have no idea what you look like, either of you, but I can see two figures there, so I'm hoping for the best. Right. Alfonso, I'm going to start with you because you found out that your dad had prostate cancer, like mine did as well.
Yeah.
So is that correct? And that then led you to, well, I'll let you tell your own story.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. So 2016, 2017, I discovered my dad had prostate cancer. I grew up in Derby, and I moved away, when I was 19 to Portsmouth to do my degree. And so my family are in Derby, and I live in the southwest. And so my sister actually told me, just after my father died. He didn't die of prostate cancer, but I learned that he had treatment, and then my sister helped him go into hospital, etc. But he didn't want to talk about it. So but after he died, my sister shared that information with me, and it made me wonder why he didn't want to talk about it. And as you know, there can be a lot of embarrassment with men around talking about their prostate.
Yep.
Anything that affects their sexual function. So I then started to do my own research in terms of what is prostate cancer, and I knew nothing about prostate or where it was. And once I'd discovered two things really. One was 1 in 8 men will get prostate cancer, which is alarming. And then I found out that 1 in 4 black men, and that really made me sit up because I mean, it was such a alarming statistic that I'm a person that reads a lot and starts to dig and go down that rabbit hole. And and I learned that prostate cancer, as far as black men is concerned, and any black man of African descent, it's our genetic Achilles heel. My research showed that any men of West African descent in particular, and the more aggressive forms of prostate cancer occurs with men from countries like West Africa, Jamaica, or the Bahamas. And so discovering that, I then went and started asking my doctor for a PSA test. I was in my early 50s, and he would say, well, you're fit, there's nothing wrong with you. You get any symptoms? No, he tried to send me away, but I stuck to my guns and insisted on having a PSA test.
Yeah.
And then there was nothing untoward for the first year or so of me doing that. And then but it started to rise, and then literally the last time I asked him, it came back as abnormal. And again he said it was only just over
why was he, but Alfonso, two things. Why was he so slow, if I may say, to say, I think this is a really good idea, we should be doing this? And why was he so, he was like dismissive, it sounds. Why was that?
I mean, I've kind of asked that question as well. And what I've learned from, being an advocate for prostate cancer, what I've learned is that because prostate and PSA tests generate false negatives and false positives, GPs are trained and, they learn this information. And there was a lot of old research to show that during the early days of prostate cancer testing and doing biopsies, that there was a tendency to overtreat because a prostate test generates a lot of false negatives and false positives, and it can lead to what they call overtreatment. So doctors were quite reluctant to use that PSA as a guide, because your PSA can raise from having sex, or from doing exercise, or just having an enlarged prostate can generate an increase in your PSA levels. So some doctors become a little bit kind of blasé about it and say, look, you're more likely to die of something else. And so depending on the doctor and where you are in the country, you're lucky in what you get. So there is this kind of postcode lottery that exists, and which is actually quite scary. So that's what I found. But my doctor, did listen to me. So when the levels started to rise, he referred me to a urologist, And again, the urologist confirmed, that the levels were high. And I then asked me if I wanted to go for a biopsy. He said, look, he's happy to hold off for 6 months, but I insisted, based on family history. And when the results came back, my urologist said, you made the right call. I was diagnosed with it was at the time Gleason 6, which is the lowest stage, and so I opted for what they called active surveillance, or watch and wait, just to see what happened for a year. And towards the end of that year, it started to jump up. It went from Gleason 6 to 7, and then the urologist said, look, we have choices here. I had options in terms of treatment, and I was psychologically not ready to have my prostate removed. So I actually opted for hormone treatment, followed by 4 weeks of radiotherapy. And touch wood, that worked wonderfully. And there was loss of function and libido and all that kind of stuff going through the treatment. But that all subsided within 9 months, and my PSA levels returned to normal, well below 0.5. So which it still is, and everything's tickety boo, as they say. So I was really lucky.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So Oliver, why is this? Because everything that I read about it that I was sent, such a postcode lottery. That is not acceptable in 2024, surely.
Yes, certainly. It's a really good question. I think we've certainly see significant differences in the number of diagnostics that are available depending on where you live in the country. You live in the southeast, you're likely to have access to a top-notch teaching hospital with the latest technology, new MRI scanners, AI built into those MRI scanners, and so. We've got areas of the country where if you're diagnosed, you only got 5% likelihood of having metastatic disease or cancer that's already spread. Whereas in other parts of the country, in Scotland, you've got a 34% likelihood of having the disease that's already spread.
Wow.
So off the charts, really significant differences. On top of that, there's also social and economic factors, having to travel a long way. If you're based in northern Scotland, obviously it's a long way to your nearest MRI scanner.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an extraordinary thing. So how long has your charity been going, Prostate Cancer Research?
So we were formed in the 1980s, so we've been around a long time. We've only recently got very involved in this screening campaign, and that's mostly because of some of the things that Alfonso was saying. The things have changed dramatically. We're far less likely to have over-treatment, over-diagnosis these days. Clinicians have got a lot better at making sure that we don't end up in that position.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Why is Alfonso mentioned something very interesting, and I'd like Scott's view on it as well, that it's something that guys don't want to talk about, which is just weird. You know, they should, because it's part of life.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately it's still associated with digital rectal exams and all of those types of things. That's not the way in which people are tested these days. Primarily, you get a PSA test, which is a simple blood test first, followed by an MRI scan. None of which are fingers up the bum. So you may go on to a targeted biopsy, but that's also a guided biopsy done with an MRI scanner. So, I think unfortunately we're still living with history. And as Alfonso was saying, we've got all of the history of, I suppose, people associating with sexual function that they don't want to talk about as well.
Yeah, I can add to that as well that, I totally agree with what Oliver said there. I did quite a bit of research around this. I did a master's degree in music therapy where I looked at how Black men use music to cope with the psychosocial symptoms of prostate cancer. But one of the things we found, with men, was this thing around this old-fashioned attitudes about, as Oliver said, a finger up the bum. So kind of homophobic attitudes. We found that as well in Black in black communities as well. So this thing around the digital rectal examination, and we've looked at studies even in places like Jamaica, where we're finding those kind of homophobic attitudes
So it's
around.
a cultural thing. We've had a lot of guests.
Yes.
We've had a lot of guests over the years discussing prostate cancer and cancer in all its various forms. That's the first time that's ever been brought up, which is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it's part of the research that that I've uncovered as well. And as Oliver said, those things are history now. I mean, the standard test for prostate cancer is a blood test. So it's really getting those messages out there. And that's the beauty of and we'll talk about that in a minute, having a national screening program. But certainly it's a blood test. But those attitudes take a long time, because they're buried into folklore and myths that men spread in the pubs. And I've sat in a sauna with eight women at my spa, and I'm the only man with 8 women talking about prostate cancer, and women talking to me about breast cancer and so on. We talk very openly about this, and then a few men will then walk in and then wince and walk out again, because women are used to going through invasive procedures and tests from a very early age, and men aren't. So they're very reluctant and can get squeamish about talking about their sexual function.
But I've got to tell you that, having lost my dad and watched him suffer, I was always sort of extra vigilant, if you like. And I must say that at Guy's Hospital here in London, they've been excellent over the years, with the PSA test, with the blood test, with all the examinations, with everything else, because it needs monitoring. And not to monitor it because of some folklore could be fatal. And it's worse of its worst thing. So, Oliver, talk to Scotty and I about a sort of national screening program that you'd like to see.
Yeah, so currently the system, as you've already pointed out, doesn't catch enough people and doesn't catch them early enough. So not only do we think it's inefficient, often people are having to turn up at their doctors several times before they're given a PSA test. Only 1 in 3 people with prostate cancer are given a PSA test at the first time of asking.
Jesus.
It's awful. But
it takes a moment. It's not a big, I've had loads. It's not a big deal. It takes, it's like that. It's nothing. It's an absolute nothing test.
It amazes me, though, that I get phone calls and text messages from my GP for regularly to go down and check my cholesterol to make sure that everything else is going up with my borderline diabetes. But the minute that you start mentioning anything to do with prostate cancer screening, be it a rectal examination or be it a PSA test, all of a sudden, we've got other things we need to be doing. There's a very much a reluctance for doctors and their staff to listen to the knowledge that, firstly, us as men, we're a very strange breed. We to try and educate us in anything is a massive issue to start with. But then once you are educated and you have a little bit of knowledge, if you try and impart that knowledge onto your doctor or to your doctor's office, my personal experience is that, we're the doctors, we're the medical professionals. Why are you telling us what we should be doing? And that's one of the hurdles I've come across, because I've had 2 rectal examinations. I've never been offered a PSA test. In all fairness, I've never asked for one, but judging by what I now know in a short space of time, I shall ask for one. There's the other hurdle from my side that we need to sort of get over. Is not just it is ignorance from a male perspective. I remember my first prostate examination, and it was like, okay, drop your strides, jump on the bell. What's going on here? And you think, hang on a second, we're not going down this route, not without preparing me. But now it's a matter of fact. One thing I'd like to ask you, Alfonso, if I may, reading some of the information we were sent, you said that you were diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2017. It wasn't until after your father's passing that you learned that he'd undergone this treatment. How did you feel when you realised that your dad had gone through this before you had?
Yeah, I mean, I felt let down, to tell you the truth.
There you go.
angry, and it's something that, you know, I said I found in my research. What my story wasn't common. There are other men in my research that shared exactly the same experiences, which is why it's really important, you know, in terms of what should you do if you know, what's the next thing I would do, you know, if I was hearing this on the radio, I was a man, you know, white or black, I'd be trying to understand my family history of cancer for the one thing. And then, you know, if I'm over 50 or if I'm black and, you know, 45, I'd be demanding a PSA test. And then, you know, and get yourself, you know, because it's really at the moment based on informed choice. So the more you know, the more, you know, then you can start to push back on these things. And that's the way it works at the moment. So yeah.
So Oliver, I'm going to ask you this, and Scotty's touched on this. We get inundated with a lot of BS about you're pre-diabetic. Everyone in the world suddenly pre-diabetic. You know, boom, everyone's but you're not, and you can resolve it in weeks. I mean, it's really no big deal. I say that not casually. You can just sort it.
Yeah.
And then, you, as Scott says, you get all these things. You know, watch your cholesterol. Meanwhile, they're doing endless adverts for fast and junk food on TV, blitzing us with all this garbage. Why is the obsession with cholesterol, which is just doable, common sense, and they're not and it's really probably not going to kill you in the short term, whereas prostate cancer, if it's not treated, will kill you in the short term? What's that about?
I think I'm certainly not a diabetes expert, but I can
No, I get that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Scotty was pointing out was that there's reticence to deal with prostate cancer, and I think that's mostly because GPs were trained in a very different era, and all of the diagnostics and all of the treatments have changed. So if you're trained 20 years ago and you knew that the risk of overtreatment was high, you know, you end up taking somebody's prostate out, they've got incontinent or impotent for 10 years longer than they needed to be. That's a significant concern, and people should be concerned about that. But things have changed. The PSA test is now followed up by an MRI scan. Most of those MRI scanners have AI embedded in them. They're far better at finding.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, AI.
Sure. So what comes out of a MRI scan is just a large picture, and now what they've been able to do is just say, okay, well, look to the radiologist, look here, here, and here, because that's where we think there's prostate cancer. It's a bit like the old chess computers. They've just got better and better and better, trained by radiologists to say, okay, this is where the cancer is. So they just get cleverer and cleverer at finding those cancers. So yeah, things have changed dramatically.
And also, could I just add that it used to be, oh, we're going to have to remove your prostate, which isn't great. I mean, let's be honest, that's not terrific. But there's now a variety, certainly last time I had a checkup, of options. So it's not as I'm going to use the word dire, which isn't a medical term, but you know what I mean. It's not as dramatic as it once was. No. There's all sorts of stuff which has come along in the last few years, which is much less invasive and just as effective.
Totally, absolutely agree. And that means that you're far less likely to lose the nerves around the prostate, which means that you're less likely to be incontinent and impotent for the next few years, even if you have to go through treatment.
Yeah, could I just comment on that as well? I mean, it's a scary thing. So, you know, once you're diagnosed with prostate cancer, and, you know, if I take my case where, you know, told it was at, you know, Gleason 7 at the time. And then, you know, the person that was speaking to me was a consultant, was a surgeon. And he was saying, look, you know, at your age, you know, your early 50s. And literally what he said to me was, look, you know, what I said, what would you do? And he said, you know what, at your age, I'd whip it out. That's what he said to me. And I said, well, actually, I said, actually, wow. I've been reading about this, and there are other options. I said, I'm not ready to do that, but can I look at the other options? And he said, what? But I found he was actually trying to sell me the fact to whip it out, just do it.
Why?
Because he's a surgeon, I think.
I was hoping, Alphonse, so you're going to say, when you said there are other options, the guy go, are there?
Yeah. And
you
so
sit there, yes, I've read this book. He said, I must get that book.
Yeah, so I
Sounds
insisted
good.
on going to talk to other people, and which I did. And I came back several weeks later and said, well, you know what? I actually want to opt for the the hormones and the radiotherapy. And I'm in teaching, and I was able to say, look, I want to do this in the summer. I'll go for the 4 weeks of radiotherapy when I've got 6 weeks off, so I can recover. So I planned it according to my lifestyle. But I've heard horror stories where other men have been told to whip it out and have done that and actually regretted it. So you get this thing around treatment regret because of depending where you are and who's presenting that information in front of you, and it's a very stressful thing when you've just been told and if you've got no support around you to make those decisions and you're just thinking cancer, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say, okay, I'll just whip it out.
Well, let's be honest. The moment most people hear the word cancer, they go into free fall and think
Exactly.
they've got about 48 hours to live. It
Exactly.
doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But all of these things, Oliver, are time sensitive, aren't they?
Yeah, and certainly we advise people to take a bit of stock of their options. In fact, we developed a really nice website where you could go on and say, this is my position. It's called infopool.co.uk, so that you can actually look at what options are available to you. It's all modeled with animations and infographics. It's all in layman's terms, so you can really get to grips with what options are available.
And where was that again? Just go
It's
through
called the infopool.co.uk. Infopool. Yeah, so it's pooling information.
Infopool.co.uk.
Correct, yeah. And so that's there to help people make these decisions and to take some pressure off the NHS, because they can go away and look through all of the options that are available to the patient and say, well, actually, this is the option for me, given where I am in my life right now and what works for me.
Amazing. Listen, thank you both so much for joining Scott and I. Really appreciate it. Last question. What would you like as a result of this initiative? What's your main objective?
Should I take it? Do you want to go?
Well, I mean, I'll just comment very quickly. We've got political will now that we've meet the minimum threshold to get something into Parliament. So that is that political will and making sure that continues, and we lobby MPs, etc. And for men to hear this and make sure they get checked. But I'll let Oliver just take it in terms of the actual campaign.
We really want people to be caught early, these cancers to be caught early, to save lives of the people that are currently dying. 12,000 people a year is not good enough. And early diagnosis would save the vast majority of those people.
Absolutely. Well, it was too late for my dad, and that's why I'm always happy to have you guys and folks like you on the Midday show anytime. Good luck with the campaign, and bless you for what you do. And Alfonso, you look the rude health picture of. That's all I'm going to say. And also, irritatingly, I know it may be my eyesight, you're saying you're in your 50s. You look about 27.
No, I'm 61. I'm 61.
You're what?
Oh, come on.
Shut up.
Oh, my days. Get him
Shut
off.
up.
No, I am. Seriously,
I don't like this guy. I was getting on with him. I don't like him at all now. I like the other guy. I don't like this guy.
I put it down to the open water swimming. I put it down to that. Yeah. So
I put it down to amazing genes, and I don't mean 501s. Have a good day. Have a good day, fellas.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, gents.
Bye. Wow. How to be 61?
Wow. That's frightening. Wow. That is frightening.
How can it be 61?
He must go to the same office as Cliff Richard. He's looking fresher these days.
You think?
He's doing better. He's doing better than I am.
Cliff? I don't. You know what? I disagree. I think you're looking better.
No,
I'm serious. I don't think Cliff looks great.
Do you know what I find?
He's 102.
I find strange about this, listening to Alfonso and to Oliver, is that at the moment we subscribe to the Informed Choice program in the UK, and this it means as men over the age of 50 have to proactively ask their GP. There's such a disparity between female cancer campaigns and men's cancer campaigns, because most of them you'll see for men it's wear a badge. You know what's going on now. Well, yeah, it's a badge. It looks good. It's on that you see them all wearing on the television. What does it actually mean? Whereas most women will get that phone call, their letter, the text message. You're due for your smear test. There's your date. You're due for your smear test in 2 days. If you haven't been, why aren't you there? What are you doing? And we don't get the same for guys, and I don't understand why there is that massive chasm between female cancer health and male cancer health. Is it because us as guys, we've made a rod for our own back that, look, we're not beating the door down as desperately as women are, so therefore, we'll just take it as it comes? Or is it just that it's easier to deal with females because they're more receptive to the information that they've been given and the approach?
I think there's a number of things, all of which you've kind of brushed upon.
Yeah.
The first is NHS can't cope.
No.
It can't cope. It's, I've recently had a whole load of tests, something that's going on with me. And I have to say the NHS were fantastic. So I'm not here bashing them at all. No. They were really extensive tests. I was seen bang on time. Everybody was polite, delightful, professional, made me feel relaxed. They were pretty, intensive tests. I can't pretend they were a walk in the park. And I was made, to feel very comfortable, and it was very impressive. It was only a couple of weeks ago, so bless them for that. But they can't really cope with everything. And I think the second thing is that you summed it up beautifully, Scott. We made a rod for our own backs. Stiff upper lip. We don't talk about it. You saw what Alfonso's dad was like. So it's like, oh, it'll be all right. It won't. It won't.
It's not going to be okay.
It's
and that's
not okay.
Well, as I've spoken many times, and with my dad at the moment, he's got that stark realization now that this is real. This isn't on the television. It's not on Coronation Street. This isn't playground stuff. This is now. It's here and now, and he's dealing with it. And he's now got to the point where he's understood. He understands now. He's not. He's got all these faculties, but you're still trying to tell a stubborn old man who knows everything. The minute that something doesn't feel right, you pick the phone up and you tell me. That's all as good as it is. If I'm at work, I'll come out. If I'm not at work, I'll come down. That's it. You've got to stop being so male about it and stop being so pig ignorant, because, ignorance won't save you.
How old's your dad, if you don't mind me asking?
He's just gone 76, so he's
not old. He's
sort of he's at that stage in his life where he's a bit sort of, 76, right, what do I do? I said, well, you go out and start living your life now, Dad. You've been given a wake-up call. Go out and do the things you want to do. So he's only just had his catheter removed. So he went out.
Oh, ow.
Yeah, I know.
Ow.
So he went. He was a bit self-conscious. No, well, he's a bit self-conscious about having this catheter on. He's sort of strapped to the inside of his leg. And I said, look, your mates are going out for breakfast. Oh, I'm not going. Well, why aren't you going? Oh, got this bloody thing on my leg. And what's wrong with that? There's a lot of people going out there with, a lot less going on in their lives than you are. Go out. And all they did was rip the mick out of him all through the afternoon. He said,
which is what mates do.
And he said, I'm glad I went now. I said, why is that? He said, all they've done is take the piss, literally. I said, well, you are wearing, whether you are, you're wearing a catheter, you might as well get some joy out of it. And he said, I'm glad I went. Well, why not?
The thing is, if you've got good friends and good friends rip into you mercilessly, I mean, we are shocking.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about acquaintances where you're very polite. I mean, really, your 3 o'clock in the morning friends, you could phone them up and go, I'm in shock. They're going to take the piss out of you mercilessly. And if you've got something like that, they love it. But the fact that they love it means it takes away the fear. It takes away I can't let them know that. So what? They're your mates. You've got a catheter.
Well, it's a talk. It's a talk.
They understand.
The whole point to all this was in the cafe that they'd gone to for this breakfast. There was another old boy that was sat at the corner. He said, "How long had your catheter on for, fella?" My dad went, "Oh, it's been on for about two and a half weeks." He said, "Oh, right then." He said, "I've got one on." And he lifted his trousers. He said, "Why are you wearing long trousers for? Don't you find uncomfortable?" "Yeah, but I don't want to be seen out with this." He said, "Mate, don't worry about it." He said, "Even in the middle of winter, get your shorts on." And this old boy then came over and sat with them, and they would start talking about my dad's got a number 16 catheter, and he's got a number 14 catheter. And we're going, "Lads, you're eating breakfast and you're talking about what size your catheter." Oh my God, Jesus.
But the thing about it is, once you shine a light on a subject, the fear starts to dissipate.
Yeah.
The shame starts to dissipate. And these things, they're not nice. They're uncomfortable. It's not pleasant. It's an inconvenience, etc., etc. But once people know, and they go, "Well, there you are. There you have it. End of." And that's the end. And then you can move on, because that's the end of that conversation. And I think it's
normal. It just becomes normalised then. There's no elephant in the room anymore. It's just a talking point. And there's a good thing about it. And Alfonso sort of made a really good point. When he's on about, from the black community, people in Jamaica find it home. I can understand to a certain degree that there are certain areas of a man's body that may be off limits. I mean, I don't talk toilet at all at home. I just go off, do my thing, come back.
Thank God for that.
Well, I may share it with you one of these days.
You did.
No, but to find it that there are homophobic references to having what was the old rectal examination now, and then the ignorance. And I mean, I still say now that my GP, the first thing is, right, you're coming in for your examiner. Well, I'm now going to ask him, can I have a PSA test? I'm 49, so I'm just the wrong side of the 50, but I'm going to ask him, can I have a PSA test? Because I skirted around it, and you get those barriers from the GP surgeries. I have a love-hate relationship with them. I have to go there, but I just find some of them think they know far too much than they actually do. And to get to speak to a doctor or a healthcare professional, you've got to go through that first line of defence, the gatekeepers. And once you pass that, it's so much easier. So,
don't you find that those receptionists, who have a tough job to do, because I'm sure you've been there, where people are being incredibly rude and aggressive and frankly stupid, but once you get they set the tone, don't they, for the whole surgery? So when you get really nice receptionists, you think, and then you feel more relaxed.
I tell you what I'd like to see in doctor surgeries: more men on reception. That, for me, that would be a great, bringing down barriers, because all of the receptionists in my doctor's surgery are females. So if I've got to go in there and I've got to say, "I see my doctor, please," "Well, do you want to go and talk to him about it? Is it personal?" "Yeah." "Well, how personal is it?" "Well, I don't want to tell you." If it was a man,
do you really not? I don't care. I don't care, because I take the view that they're in that profession. That's what they're there. I mean, I'm not going to go and discuss, is fruit and nut better than dairy milk, better than Toblerone? I mean, obviously, I'm there for a medical reason. I don't care.
Oh, no. I can only discuss these things with my doctor. Kelly, who's the nurse who does all my blood tests, she's great. I mean, she just says it's just a bit of skin hanging off the front of a man. There's nothing attractive about it whatsoever. And also, when you're having your rectal examination, it's just somewhere else to stick a probe. So we have a good laugh about that. But to discuss it in the reception, but then again, doctors' receptions aren't particularly private.
No, they're not. They're like, no, they're not.
It's a foyer, and where
like the queue at Tesco's, you might as well, yes, that is a bit awkward.
My new doctor's receptionist, my new doctor's is in one of these big new medical centres. So you've now got 3 doctors' surgeries in one big community centre type thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And you've got 3 desks. So now, where you were having to sit in one reception and tell one set of people, that's now been amplified, where you're now able to tell one set of people with two other sets of people listening to your business. I'm thinking, I don't want to know this. I don't want you to know what's going on.
You could write it down.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you could. By the
Could
way,
do.
I just want to talk about PSA tests, because if you don't
Yes.
know, you think, oh, I bet it's a really big deal. It's
No.
nothing. It's a nothing. It's a blood test. It's absolutely a nothing. And I'm not being blasé about it. It bish bash bosh. It's like 15 seconds, if that. It's nothing. It's not a procedure. It's
No.
a blood test, and they do some readings off it.
Well, that's what I'm saying about. It's no different to having your cholesterol checked, or or having your diabetes checked. It is just a blood test, and that if the marketing went down that road, and the education was, look, is about just, it's a small prick. No, there you go. There's your marketing strapline.
Yay.
Then fine.
Yay,
Hey,
swish.
then you can. That would probably mean to most blokes, it's just a blood test. All right then. But again, it's that education. I saw a post from one of the large cancer charities that was having an argument on social media with someone about PSA test versus the rectal examinations. And this large cancer charity was saying the most effective way of checking your prostate is by having the rectal examination. This guy was saying, well, I've been having these things now for donkey's years, and the PSA test is there. And he was throwing fact after fact. And this large cancer charity just wouldn't have it. And whoever was working in their social media department obviously needs to be taken outside and thrashed within into their life, because they obviously are ill-informed on what it is. But again, if the large cancer charities are employing people who are ill-informed, then what chance have we got to get the message out to all and sundry that it's not as bad as it gets? You know, we've normalised smear tests for females. That I can't think of anything worse.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. And I'm just going to walk straight into the minefield, if I may. You won't get this on the BBC. We won't get anything on the BBC. Is this? If they said, we're going to give you a rectal examination, the whole thing takes 10 seconds, if that.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. The thing we've got to do is take away this myth and take away the fear factor and all of these things. I would rather have, 5 seconds. It's not even 10 seconds, to be honest with you. And no, you got an enlarged prostate, or no, it's okay. I'd rather walk around knowing that and have like 5 seconds of a bit of discomfort than going, oh, I can't have that. It's a nonsense. It's absolutely bonkers.
And medical professionals don't sexualize these things. It's not that, breasts are
Hardly.
just, well.
Hardly. Well, bloody hope not.
Well, that's the whole point. But to a lot of people, it's like me when I think, oh, John, where's he going to go with that thing? And it was just like, okay, so it was done. I think mine lasted no more than 20 seconds. So it was done and dusted.
It's very quick.
It was finished.
But wouldn't you rather, as a bloke, or as anybody with half a brain, you'd rather have that and walk around free in your mind than wandering around as I was, thinking, oh, I don't know, I killed my dad, I don't feel great, You'd rather know. Get it sorted. Surely.
There's not. I don't think there'd be anything on this planet that would be anything more devastating as if it was a procedure or a blood test or any other kind of test to you that could do you any more harm than knowing full well that you got cancer and that you hadn't had it checked and you weren't being treated.
I know.
And as much as I joke with my wife constantly. I said, look, we were checking our life policies the other day just to make sure that I was still worth a few quid. I said, well, you've got the insurance company's number on speed. I've actually put it in her phone, and I actually rang it. I changed my number in a mobile phone to the life insurance company's name, Scott's Life Insurance, and I rang it. She'd, bloody hell, somebody's ringing me about your life insurance. Oh, well, you never know how long you got left, do you? And as soon as she realised it was me, I do that whenever you see these competitions on television when they ring.
And now people. You know why she's gone away for a week. To Benedict.
It's great, isn't it?
But most of these things, and what try to do when we're not chit-chatting about politics or just mucking about is just taking away, demystifying all this bullshit and saying, it's no big deal. Some things are a very big deal, but this whole area is not a big deal. If you deal with it in good time, it's all very doable. So the 2 points, and then we're going to move on. One, PSA test takes 7 seconds, if that. It's a blood test. The end. There's no voodoo magic about it. And if you're going to have a prostate examination, you have a prostate examination. Finish. Get over it.
Yeah.
It takes 10 seconds, if that. Finished. The end. End of story. You'd rather know. And then you can be either looked after or you have a free mind, which I'd rather have. Now, changing the subject. In the United Kingdom, Scott Lyons, we used to have a democracy, and we would have an opposition party. Have I missed something?
Do you remember those good old days? Well, that's the thing that I was only saying this last night. There was I was listening to a radio station in London, LBC, and one of the presenters on there said, "Look, we're listening to a boring speech by a boring prime minister about boring stuff about getting Britain back on there, and not once has anybody said, where's the opposition? Where are the Conservatives? Where have they gone?"
Well, where they go? I know it's summer recess. I know it's the summer break, because I've had this before. And people say, "We're on holiday, they're not." Yeah, no one's ever on. Yeah, they're not in Parliament. Parliament is in recess. Okay, that doesn't mean you're not still a member of His Majesty. Beg your pardon. Boy, that's all those years. His Majesty's opposition. It's like, well, they've just packed up, gone home. It doesn't exist.
It feels that way, doesn't it? As though there's
very
nobody
odd feeling.
If I was in the Conservatives, in the Conservative Party now, and we just lost the general election in the way we just have, I'd want to come right. You put this in your manifesto. You promised this. You just cut the winter fuel allowance to the pet. What are you doing? I'll be on there.
They've lied. I mean, they're basically. This is not a. Well, it is a political point. They basically barefaced lied. It's as simple as that. We're not going to do this, and you went straight away and did it.
Yeah.
Straight away. And I'm just thinking, what is nobody? Why is it down to social media? Why is it down to Elon? Why is it down to various people on social media who are brave enough? And then I want to come on to another point. There's meant to be an opposition party or opposition parties, plural. Nothing. Not a peep. The only person I see saying anything is Susan Hall, who I've got to know, who ran for London mayor, didn't succeed, and they voted in you-know-who, worst mayor in living. My
dad used to be a bus driver, I'm fine.
But he's never mentioned that. He's never mentioned that before. If only he'd been a bus driver, we'd all been much happier in London. Anyway, neither here nor there. So, and Susan Hall makes comments, and you would think that would get thousands of responses. It doesn't. It doesn't. I make a silly comment about Ricky Gervais's the other day. See, this is what I don't understand, right? Help me out. You're a smart guy, right?
Am I?
Well, you are a smart guy. That's why you're on the show, and we love you. So I did a post about Ricky Gervais's vodka, right? He saw it, liked it. I got 360,000 views on it. 360,000 views on a silly joke that I did about Ricky Gervais. 360,000, right? You put something serious from Susan Hall or somebody, which is a really valid point. I don't know, 20, 22.
I just think people are bored.
What's happening here?
I think people are just bored of it. I'm bored of politics. I'm bored. I couldn't care less if it was Keir Starmer or Kiki D that was Prime Minister at the minute. I really couldn't. And I'm bored of the whole damn thing. Yeah. And I was talking, my father-in-law, he's staunch Labour, through and through, 40 years as a union convener. And he's just gone, right, yeah, Labour. He went, oh, God, what have we done? That was
Would he vote for him again? A difficult question. Does he feel betrayed? You don't have to
I think he's betrayed is probably a strong word. I think he's disappointed with the outcome. He didn't want Sir Keir Starmer as the Prime Minister or the leader of the Labour Party. He said, but then again, who else are you going to have? And it's the same with the Conservatives. It's not Rishi Sunak. Who else are you going to be?
It wasn't. The truth of it was, let's be grown up, it wasn't a vote for Labour because everyone thought Labour was great. It was that everyone thought that the Tories were shit and had screwed up over 13 years, and they thought, sod them. All right, well, we'll give these other people a go. It was really a sort of to the Tories, not because they thought Labour was an inspiring party. They'd have voted for, screaming Lord Such if it had been a viable alternative.
All joking aside, Russ, if we'd have had a monster raving loony party candidate in our area, I'd have voted for them. In fact, I may stand next time.
But it's interesting, though, that Nigel Farage, or Farage, as he was at school, Nigel Farage, he says, right, I understand we're not going to get in now in 2024, but in 5 years' time. And I'm surprised. He seems to be very slow out of the blocks with this. I thought he'd be all over what's going on, and he doesn't seem to be.
I think the fact that he's been paid a shed ton of money by one of the news channels, sort of
GB News.
GB News, has sort of taken the wind out of his sails. Had that have not surfaced, I'm sure somebody was keeping that up their sleeve for a rainy day. I'm sure if that one hadn't surfaced, I think he would have come out literally all guns blazing, pointing the finger, and giving it large. But I think he's pretty much on the back foot now. He doesn't want anybody starting to look at his business affairs. Although I'm sure Carol Vorderman will take great pleasure in looking at what he's been up to, along with everybody else.
I look at some people. I think you've just gone. What has happened? I used to know Carol Vorderman way back in late 30 plus years or more ago, when we did some work together for corporate films I was writing, etc. She was delightful, and I can't equate that really very nice young woman to. I don't get it, and that's just me. That's just me. I don't understand. You are in the business of communication. That is your field. That is what you do for a living. That's what you've always done. Do you feel constrained?
Yes.
There you go. Have you ever felt constrained before?
Not as much as I had before, but then again, I'm massively into American radio, and American radio you can pretty much do and say to an extent whatever you want to without being shot or thrown out of a 12th floor window. I do genuinely feel at the moment that it's different for me because I work in commercial radio, so we have to be very, very careful that we don't see anything that's likely to be upset our advertisers or inflame a certain demographic. So it's always been the same. But I do feel there's times where I open the microphone and just literally want to vent my spleen about what's going on in the news, and I have to go and just bring it back.
Don't you feel that your listeners on your other radio station would actually endorse that and welcome it? And if they didn't like what you were saying, this is part B of my question, they'd phone you up or whatever, I don't know the format of your show, and say, Scott, shut up, you're talking out your rear end.
I think most listeners to any radio station or viewers to any TV station would love the presenters to take the shackles off and have an opinion. Yes, you've got those presenters that will play devil's advocate quite nicely, and they're there to sort of, bait both sides of the argument to get a reaction. That's fine. But to have an honest presenter that wants to have their opinion and wants to gain a reaction, genuinely wants a reaction back from their listener or from their viewer, is, I just think we should have done this many, many years ago when the radio authority stopped and the Ofcom came in, which was another waste of time.
Or as it's being called on social media today, off-communist.
Yes, that's one of
Ofcom. What a waste of time. Gee,
Never done anything.
Let's just say it. Nonsense.
It's great white sharks with no teeth. They've got no sway whatsoever, and again, I can never understand the communications governing body that doesn't want to be responsible for holding all of the media to account. That includes the BBC, but that's a discussion for another day. But I think anybody who wants to ring up and listen, wants to talk on a radio station, a TV show, BBC Local Radio now isn't set up for it. It doesn't have the caliber of journalists that are working for them at the moment to deal with it. I couldn't go and work, even let's just say 5-10 years ago, I couldn't go and work on a BBC Local Radio station like Liz has done, Liz Saul, and for many others. Good friend of mine, Jim Hawkins, who used to work on BBC Radio Shropshire. He is an amazing broadcaster. To listen to him having a debate with anybody, it's a work of art. It's just beautiful. Just to listen to him unpacking their opinions and reconstructing where they've gone wrong. For me, it's an art form. I was never talented enough to do it. It was something I wish I'd done many, many years ago, and I probably won't get the chance to do it now. The format of our shows doesn't lend to it, but even if we were to allow and to vet some of the responses back from the listener, we would find ourselves in a whole heap of trouble, because that's where Ofcom are. They will attack the small fry, and they will let the bigger fish swim off without any issues at all. And I just find that massively unfair. I do.
Years ago, I said to my favourite BBC producer, I said, I think this is a deliberate policy of getting in presenters who are simply below par, making the schedule very odd. Therefore, the listening figures go down, and therefore you have the excuse to say it's not working.
Correct.
And I honestly, hand on heart, believe that's what happened, so they could go around and close a bee in my bonnet about local radio. I've always loved local radio, local issues, local radio. Coming out of London, coming out of Manchester, wherever it is, it's local radio, matey. That's national radio, pretending to be local. And it's a shame. It's a shame.
It's shocking. And the one thing that I think the one area of the BBC I thought they were very, very good at up until just after COVID, when they started to rationalise the local radio network, I thought the majority of the BBC local radio network was magnificent. It gave the presenter, it hired presenters that could journalistically present programmes and have the ability, the knowledge and the training to be able to have a reasoned discussion and to deal with the issues of the day. Where you've got now in where I live, they've just employed on a Saturday morning a former kids TV host. Now he's a football fan, and I'm sure he can have a great discussion about the whys and wherefores of Wolves versus West Bromwich Albion. Lovely. If he gets Margaret from Walsall, who wants to talk about why are her taxpayers not being spent on rewilding the local environment, and they're not collecting their bins and the rest of it, he's going to get I don't know, and I couldn't do that. But like you said, they're dumbing down.
The other thing is, there is the great world of difference between presenting television and presenting radio. They are not the same thing. And a lot of people think, it is. So I never understood, let's get a big TV name in and do, Terry Wogan, who was one of my absolute idols, was so much better on radio.
Yes.
And he was good on TV. Please don't misunderstand me, but he was magnificent on radio.
He said it himself. He actually said this himself. He said it himself many, many times. I can't understand why they put me on the television. He said, I can't do TV. He said, they got rid of me from the bank because I couldn't count. He said, so they put me on the radio instead. So why am I on the television? And it's right.
The thing that people complain about, we've got comments coming in. People are complaining, what have we got here? Here we go. This is coming in from America. There's currently a real juxtaposition around politics in Canada and the States. On one hand, there's sort of revival of thought, debate and ideas. And on the other hand, there's heightened skepticism around politics and politicians. Well, then, Asa, let's cut it short. They're all terrible people. The end. They're all ghastly.
They're feathered in their own nests. Doesn't matter who.
It's drain the swamp and then drain it again. That's all they can do. Scotty, thank you so much for joining me today. I always enjoy it when you come on the show.
Thank you.
I will be back today, Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday with Phil Dave, if he can fit us into his schedule, and the fabulous Chantal Rickards, OBE. Until then, stay well, stay out of trouble, and careful what you post. You don't want the police knocking on your door. God, talking about Berlin 1933. Bye, everybody.
See ya.